Okay, welcome everyone to the presentation on presentations, Unheckleable, brought to you by Joe G, product owner. Today, talking about presentations. Yes, this is the presentation on presentations. It's a bit meta, but I am going to give you some tips for standing in front of people, mostly showing visuals and how to talk out loud. Now, I don't claim to be the best, but I do know a thing or two and want to share some of the things that have helped me when I stand in front of people and present things visually. So we've all seen good presentations, right? We've seen TED Talks and we've seen keynotes. These are good presentations. We've also seen bad presentations and they look like this. There are slides with lots of words and irrelevant references, horrible fonts and bad colors, charts that don't make sense. Stretch stock photos. No one even reads this except for the presenter who reads it word for word. And they use cliche terms like driving effective business strategies by prioritizing low-hanging fruit for a full 360, interoperable, synergistic, innovation, disruptive, whatever, right? And half the people at this point are already on their phones and not paying attention. I actually made this. This is a bad presentation that I made way back in the day for a client when I was in an agency life. The client didn't read it. This was a status update presentation that I made. I was pretty curious why none of the to-dos were actually getting done and they all started getting past due. Now, the truth is though, is those two slides that you saw were different than the TED Talks and the Apple keynotes, right? One is conveying ideas and is a form of entertainment. The other serves a business purpose to document and to share details. But I would wager that if business presentations were more like those TED Talks, more like those entertainment presentations, they would be more compelling, effective, engaging, and would probably actually transmit some information, unlike those big walls of text that we see. So I'm going to do three things over the next few moments. I'm going to share with you some tips on how to give presentations. I'm going to share a handful of resources and then going to end with a call to action. First, tips. Use less words. Fewer words have power and they have a higher chance of actually being remembered. So this is that presentation, that bad presentation that I did. This happened to be a proposal. And it's funny to go back after the fact and actually cross out all the stuff that you don't need. This was an exercise in using fewer words. So the next time I presented it, it looked more like this, a bit more digestible. And this is an example of how we can take these really dense business presentations and make them more approachable. Size matters. Use big text. Big text is easier to read, especially if you're sitting in the back, like most of you. Hey, I want to talk to you about Kanban. No, get out of here. Kanban. All right, images. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Here's me doing some Kanban versus Kanban. I like to use black and white images. That's just my style. I like to use big text. You can be fancy and put some drop shadow on there. But if you're showing images, make them big and vibrant. Also, don't do this. Don't use stock photos. Don't stretch them. People still do this, believe it or not. It looks horrible. Now, the number of slides. A lot of people get like all worked up about the number of slides that are in a presentation. I've like sat down and presented and it's like, Joe, you got 10 slides. Each slide is 3 minutes. I hope this thing is only 10 slides long because we only got 30 minutes. I've been talking for a few minutes. This was slide number 25. The number of slides is irrelevant when you're presenting. Don't worry about it. Colors. Pick good ones. Not bad ones like this. Okay? The important part is that regardless of the colors that you use lots of contrast. Black and white is really the way to go. If you want to be fancy, you can go to Google and Ally and figure out all the colors that have good contrast. And if you're particularly interested in helping out folks who might be color blind or color impaired, stay away from the grays and greens and reds. Stats. When you're sharing stats, use big numbers. Don't go to decimal points. Don't use any details, and use them sparingly in your presentations. Sometimes people remember stats. 73% of stats are made up on the spot. Repetition. Repetition. Repetition is the name of the game. When it comes to people remembering your conversation, the key points, those are the ones that you should be repeating. Okay? So use repetition for the things that you really want folks to take away. So remember that I'm going to be talking to you about 3 things today. I'm going to give you some tips on presenting, some resources, and a call to action. This is me repeating what I'm going to tell you about. All right? Now, the other thing is structure. When you do your presentations, I like to think of them like a sandwich. This is what we're going to do. Here's the meat or the ice cream of it, and here's the end of it. So I'll be reminding you about what we talked about and the key points to take away from. You know where we're headed. You can also visually structure your presentation. So if you look at all the slides, Keynote I think has a fancy feature that lets you do this. It actually helps to break it all up with what your main sections are as well. So consider that when you make your slides present. Know thy audience. Know who you're speaking to. Is it a group of experts? Is it a group of noobs? Is it a group of technical folks? Is it someone an audience that may be emotionally charged, right? If you're doing something political or controversial. And also know your topic, right? Be an expert. It's the thing that will help you present effectively and answer questions effectively as well. Practice. Practice makes perfect when it comes to your presentations. Voice. Avoid the ahs and the ums and the likes. You can use your tone, right, to accentuate certain points or whatnot. Volume. You should certainly speak so that everyone can hear you. You should articulate as best you can. You can talk really loud and fast to show excitement, or you can really quiet it down and use pauses and speak softly to emphasize points. Timing. The pace that you talk, right, similar to your voice there. You can speed up when you're really excited. You can slow down for emphasis. Messing up. I was going to say another term, but I didn't want to be inappropriate. Messing up. There's going to be a point in a presentation when you're going to make a mistake. You're going to say something stupid. You're going to lose your train of thought. You're going to go off the rails. You're probably going to offend someone, right? Especially based on the topic that you're doing. You're going to say a wrong fact. Think about that. Go into your presentation knowing those things. And remember, just keep going. The audience probably won't know that you've made a mistake. Half of them will probably be on their phones or their laptops, especially if you're talking about something boring. And just keep going. Preparation is key, right? You should be practicing your presentations. You should know your slides in the order of them inside and out, and that will really help you recover from messing up. Also, recording your presentations. This is being recorded. It's really good to rewatch them, especially if presenting is something that you want to get better at. Questions. Not that you ask me questions. Questions in presentations, right? Often they feel like an onslaught. The presentation ends and then everyone raises their hand. They ask all these really hard questions that you may or may not know the answer to. Someone is inevitably going to ask a question that's actually not a question. It's just a way for them to sound smart and like they know more than you, the authority who's speaking on a particular subject. The important part is just to know that that's coming. You can choose not to answer questions, right? Thanks for coming. You walk off the stage, right? You can also answer questions. Again, being an expert is the thing that will help you answer questions. You can always do hey, that's a great point, talk to me after. You can answer really briefly and then move on, or you can simply not answer. Common journalistic technique, just don't answer the question that they ask, answer something else and move on. Questions are bound to come. So, remember, I'd say if there's a few things to remember when it comes to like the presentations, on the visual side is use fewer words in your slides, use big text, and use lots of contrast. If you do these 3 things, you're going to be in the top 90% of people who present. All right, so those are your presentation tips. Next, resources. 3 good resources that I want to share. The first is speaking.io. You can Google it or type it into your favorite browser. Speaking.io is a website made by this guy, Zach Holman. He worked at GitHub. He's a San Francisco guy. He's given a lot of presentations, and a lot of his tips have gone into this presentation. I found it really helpful when I was presenting in my product role. Talk Like Ted. If you're interested in giving good, entertaining stories that are emotional and compelling, this is a really good book. If you ain't got time for that, there's a great website called Blinkist. And Blinkist will give you the 10-minute summary of what the book is about. There are also really other good resources out there in books like The Art of Public Speaking and The Elements of Style. Again, we all have limited time. Go to Blinkist, listen to the 20-minute synopsis of it. Next, the call to action. You all have ideas, right? We all come from interesting backgrounds and experiences. We all have a lot to bring to the table. And I would ask that you share them. We have a great mechanism to do this every Wednesday. Wisdom Wednesday is a time for you to get in front of people and share these ideas. None of these need to be earth-shattering. Maybe you're just a particular expert in something. We'd like to hear them. The UX has organized this, so fill the slots, right? This is the Wisdom Wednesday, and there's a lot of open slots in there. Think about what ideas you'd like to share. I can fill this up. You have to listen to all my propaganda if that's the case. But I want to hear from you all. And I've just given you a whole bunch of tips about how you can stand in front of all of us and give a compelling presentation. There are some resources out there here at Block One, books, that Speaking.io website. And I would ask that you all think about the ideas that you have and sign up for the next Wisdom Wednesday. Thanks.
If anybody needs the link to the sign-up sheet, just Telegram me.